Hey, everybody, and welcome to the FTN Network Shots and Tanier NFL podcast. I am Aaron Schatz that makes our pictures look correct. Hi, I'm Aaron Schatz of FTNFantasy.com/DVOA. He is Mike Tanier of TheMessenger.com. We are here a day earlier than usual to preview Thanksgiving weekend, Week 12 in the NFL. Don't forget that if you are watching us live, which we do 11 a.m., usually on Mondays and Thursdays, you can ask us questions and make comments about all the games we are discussing. We are not going to do much on this week's Island games. The Thanksgiving games. I'm going to give you the games, Mike, and I'll just ask for a quick one sentence, like what's the first thing that comes to your mind, okay? Lions and Packers.
It's weird thinking like, oh, this is a Lions gimme, as opposed to the last 40 years of this is a Packers gimme.
Commanders and Cowboys.
Commanders play everyone tough, so stay tuned. And Dolly Parton at halftime.
Black Friday. Miami and the New York Football Jets.
I will either be at a tree lighting ceremony or drinking.
We were talking before the show. For fun, go look up Tim Boyle's college record. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's amazing. And his pro record, the little he's played, is remarkable.
But the one Thanksgiving game that we do want to cover is the first game we want to discuss on today's show, and that is the night game, which is the 7-4 49ers at the 7-3 49ers at the 6-4 Seahawks. This is the most important game for Super Bowl odds in our simulations. The 49ers make the Super Bowl 44% of the time if they win and 36% if they lose. The Seahawks make the playoffs 83% of time if they win, but only 49% of the time if they lose. What's your initial thoughts on Seattle and San Francisco?
The 49ers Super Bowl odds are amazing. I'm guessing.
Yeah, we have them. We have them. So in a normal year where Baltimore wasn't flying around DVOA,
yes.
I mean, San Francisco is almost 13 percentage points ahead of the rest of the league. Wow. In DVOA. Like DVOA loves them. Mm-hmm. And so it just loves their chances to win the Super Bowl.
And I'm guessing the NFC, the odds are just scattered among 4 teams with nobody else below that. And even the Lions probably have a very small share of that.
Well, the Lions, the DVOA likes the Lions. DVOA has the Lions 4th. So yeah, it's those top 4 teams in the NFC, and that's really it.
Well, my first impression of the Seahawks is I don't know Geno Smith's health status. The odds makers seem to think he's going to play. That's a line that is not a Drew Lock line, certainly, if you look at it.
49ers by 6.5. I agree with you.
Yes, it would be about 9.5 or 10.5 or something with Drew Lock out there. Also, there are props in there for Geno. Geno is talking like he's going to gut it out, and he's talking like it's a game time decision there. Geno has not played phenomenally well, and I don't like the idea of him at like 75-80% going out there against this particular defense.
You talked a little bit before we got on about the general menace of the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Menace, not menace as in MENACE, but menace as in MEH-NESS.
Right. And so there's 4 great NFC teams, and then there's subtract 11, I guess, just terrible NFC teams, or 10, and then there's the Vikings, who are interesting, and then there's the Seahawks, who are just meh. Yeah. And I was talking to some people on Threads, and like Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator there, is like under some kind of fire, or like they're wondering, why this team can't sustain beyond the first quarter. They're like the opposite of the Steelers, where they're really good in the first quarter, then their offense flatlines. And yeah, I don't watch the games and see a particular problem, except for the fact that they have a 41-year-old right tackle who's just called off the street, and Jason Peters, and Geno Smith's your quarterback. And what did you expect those first 3 or 4 games of Geno for the next 2 seasons afterwards? I guess some people did.
Seattle is bad in the most important situations. That's, I think, where a lot of the struggle comes from, criticism. They are very bad in the red zone this year. And they are 30th passing on third down. Where, by the way, the 49ers defense is second.
Yeah. I mean, I don't look at that offense and say, well, they've got a lot of solutions on 3rd and 10. Let's put it that way.
I mean, Smith-Njigba is not wowing people. He's not Quentin Johnston, but he's not
dropping touchdowns. He's not dropping. He's playing, and Bobo is playing, but that's not like, oh, we have a solution at number 3. So it's the usual suspects. It's Lockett. It's Metcalf doing his boundary receiver type of thing. It's the stable of running backs. No Kenneth Walker, it looks like. And it's fine if they're staying on schedule offensively so they can stay balanced. And if they can't stay balanced, then you've had a rotating group of tackles, and you've got Geno Smith out there trying to create on 3rd and long.
And it's definitely the boundary stuff this week because the 49ers are the best defense in the league against passes up the middle.
Ooh.
So, I mean, Fred Warner, hello.
Right. The one thing they usually can be beaten on is sort of jump ball up the sideline. So that might be an avenue where Metcalf could be useful.
When Seahawks are on defense, they are terrible against passes over the middle, which is not a good weakness to have against Brock Purdy and the 49ers.
Oh, God. No.
They do want to blitz Purdy, though. Purdy drops 1.3 yards per play when blitzed, and Seattle's defense improves by 1.3 yards per play when they blitz. So they do want to bring some pressure against Purdy, but he's going to connect over the middle, and I have a hard time. I mean, listen, 7.5 or 6.5 is not a like this is impossible type game, but I do feel like the 49ers are very clearly the better team here. And even though the game is in Seattle, I think the 49ers should walk away with a win. In fact, I would bet 49ers -6.5.
I would probably bet 49ers 6.5. One of the things I was trying to do is come up with some interesting bet for Thanksgiving. And I was like, well, what if I took money line on all 3 favorites? Just go chalk, chalk, chalk. Even that on a 3-legged parlay is -110. So
really? A 3-legged parlay?
Straight up bets.
Oh, because it's money line on all 3.
Money line. Like when you do that, I mean, you can get some juice if you try to get all 3 teams covering. It's a spicier meatball. I was just like, yeah, three wins. That's down at -110. Didn't like it. I'd rather just go with the 49ers here.
Yeah. Let's go to Sunday's games. And the really most interesting of the 1 p.m. games is the 7-3 Jaguars at the 6-4 Texans. Jaguars make the playoffs 98% of time if they win, 83% if they lose.
Right.
Texans, 77% of the time if they win, 44% of the time if they lose. If the Jaguars win this, it eliminates a big Houston tiebreaker advantage because Houston beat Jacksonville 37-13 back in week 3.
Yes.
So if Jacksonville wins this one on the road in Houston, then the teams will be 1-1 against each other. And then you go to record. And then at that point, the Jaguars, having won this game, will be 2 games ahead of the Texans.
Unbelievable.
The fact that we're even talking about the Texans in this discussion is unbelievable.
That's what I was saying, especially when if you look at their injury report lately. Are you really on the field for this team?
Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about, the Buffalo Bills, their problem was injuries. Hello, look at what the Houston Texans have had to do. Like, Noah Brown balled out for a couple weeks. He was out last week. I think he's questionable this week. Half the guys you've heard of, people like Jimmy Ward, they're on the injury report. Dameon Pierce has not played well. Singletary has played better. He's been on the injury report for weeks. It still weakens a team that doesn't have a lot of talent. They had to change kickers, and yet they're still out there in this situation.
I don't know how much the problem was Pierce and how much it was just the Texans' offensive line is just not good run blocking. They're just much better pass blocking than they are run blocking.
They also got some guys back along the way. Tunsil came back for a while, so that might be helping a little bit at this point. But their running game is starting to not be this league worst thing. It's starting to be complementary to their passing game. And their passing game's nuts.
Yeah. And the Texans want to spread the Jaguars out. The Texans are better from 11 personnel than they are from 21.
Okay.
And the Jaguars defense is better in base.
Okay.
So you want to come in with the 11 personnel, even though there is no Noah Brown. You want to come in with the 11 personnel. You want to spread out the Jaguars defense and pick on their 5th and 6th defensive backs.
Yeah, you get those speedy linebackers off the field. I've not really scouted their linebackers, but I know they have a ton of speed there.
Trevor Lawrence with the blitz minus 19% DVOA. Without the blitz, plus 18%.
Okay.
And Houston's defense is also better blitzing than when they don't blitz. So they want to blitz Lawrence. They blitzed him 8 times in the first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And he did have 4 completions of 18 or more yards, but he also had a pick and an intentional grounding on 3rd and 9.
Right. It's almost like the trade-off you want there.
Yeah, the blitz should they should blitz him more than that, honestly. They should blitz him more than 8 times in this game. Texans defense also has a huge advantage in the trenches by the ESPN win rate stats. The Texans are 3rd in pass rush win rate and 4th in run stop. The Jaguars are 29th in pass blocking and 28th in run blocking.
I've seen the blocking of that line. And again, this is another stat for the Texans. Like, can you name these guys that are winning at the line of scrimmage?
Jonathan Greenard, Sheldon Rankins.
Yeah.
Will Anderson. And I honestly cannot name the other defensive tackle.
I think Hughes and
Collins.
Hughes was still running around out there.
Yeah, he's like a backup end for them. Yep,
he's like that, like the rush specialist veteran, and it's a bunch of guys. It's not just like nobodies because they're 2nd or 3rd round picks. They're nobodies who've been in the league 5, 6, 7 years. So it's stunning to see them suddenly rise up at this particular level.
So you're making the D'Amico Ryans for Coach of the Year argument here.
Keep making it. I keep making. I think it's plus 250 right now. He's behind Dan Campbell. So hopefully you jumped on the bandwagon. If not, jump on it now.
The line is Jaguars minus 1.5.
Take it.
The game is in Houston. Are you taking the Jags or are you taking the Texans?
I'm taking the Jaguars. I'm trusting sort of the priors. I'm trusting the talent level as it should look on paper at this point, and say this is a team that has a better record, has been playing well, should be better than this opponent.
Yeah, their defense, the Jaguars' defense has just been playing surprisingly well this year, and I don't quite know where that comes from. So I think I take the Jaguars too, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Next game we're going to cover is the most important game for playoff odds, but not necessarily the most exciting on the docket, but it's important. And I'm going to emphasize that that's why we're covering the 5-5 Saints at the 4-6 Falcons. Mike is falling asleep. Saints make the playoffs 87% of the time if they win, 55% if they lose. Falcons 39% if they win, 10% if they lose. Obviously, these teams at this point, my grandiose idea in the preseason that the schedule would put 2 NFC South teams in the playoffs is not going to happen. They have to win the division in order to make the playoffs. So that's why this game is so important. Falcons, by ESPN's numbers, by the way, this is 2 really bad pass rushes against 2 really bad pass blocking lines.
Oh, great. So something's got to give.
Yeah.
Falcons are 2-0 in that division. So 3-0 in that division. Of course, you got another game against the Panthers coming up that should be a win. Despite their lower odds, they can put themselves in a decent tiebreaker for that division position with a win. And on the other side of the ball, Marshawn Lattimore is out at cornerback. This is a huge loss. Or I think he's questionable officially, but it's a high ankle sprain 2 weeks ago. It'd be stunning to see him come back. Michael Thomas is on IR. He has not had a phenomenal year, but he was their wide receiver too. He's still somebody you account for. And last check, which was a day ago, Derek Carr was still in concussion protocol.
Yes, I don't know who's starting this game for the Saints.
Right. And I don't think I care.
Although, I don't think Jameis Winston is worse than Derek Carr. He's just different.
He's different. He's higher.
You're going to get more highs and you're going to get more picks.
Right. But Lattimore's a big blow.
Lattimore is a big blow.
Yes.
Here's a couple of interesting Falcons numbers. The Atlanta defense is above average on 1st and 3rd down. They are so bad on 2nd downs that they're 26th overall.
How can you be bad on 2nd downs?
Terrible.
Good on 1st and 3rd downs.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, and it can't be Arthur Smith. He ain't doing stuff on defense. My
guess is that the split is a little bit of a mirage, and really they're just a bad defense.
Right. But they have
the offense is near the bottom of the league for 3 quarters and then 7th in the 4th quarter.
I believe that.
Now, I did that research showing that there's really nothing predictive about quarter by quarter splits, but doesn't that sound like the Falcons to you?
Yeah. Yeah,
They've come back late in a couple of games and like made them games, and you're like, oh, all right.
They used to do that for years with Matt Ryan. Now they do it differently, but they do it.
The Saints are the best defense against running backs as receivers.
Interesting.
Which is interesting because we know Atlanta likes to throw the ball to Bijan Robinson.
Yes.
And may not have as many opportunities to do that if the Saints are covering Robinson well when he's out of the backfield.
Right. And of course, they do throw to Algiers as well. And I guess they throw to Cordell Patterson. They do a lot of things. And of course, Desmond Ridder is back. We had 2 games of Fire High Heineke. He's banged up. Arthur Smith has been, like saying, oh, Ridder really learned from his time on the bench, which is the kind of sort of patronizing thing you say when you're a coach like Arthur Smith.
2 weeks on the bench. How much did he learn in 2 weeks?
You learned a lot from watching Taylor Heineke out there.
Right.
Come on. But so we get that. I think we're going to get the vintage Arthur Smith offense for what it's worth, which is all of the motion and flippery and tight ends playing running back and whatever, all that fun stuff.
The line is Saints -1.
Well, never, ever, 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 ever bet on the Falcons. But if I were required to pick a team, I would pick the Falcons in this particular game. Again, when I look at that Saints defense, if you start taking the veteran stars away from it, that's the strength of that team. I know like the cornerback 1 against the Falcons is weird because they won't throw to Drake London if he's like over
right.
or whatever. But I still think those Falcons have an opportunity here to salvage their season to a degree against a sort of banged up opponent. I think they're going to do it.
I'd love to see the Falcons win because of all my preseason nonsense, but I think the Saints. I would pick the Saints in this game. I think even with Jameis Winston at quarterback, I would go with Saints -1. What's interesting to me is if it turns out that they decide who the quarterback is, does the line move?
Does the line move? And do you put a Jesse Bates interception prop up there someplace for?
Oh, if Winston is the quarterback.
Yeah. For garbage pandas like me to take.
All right. Let's talk about the big 4:00 game, the battle between DVOA and conventional wisdom. The 6-5 Bills at the 9-1 Eagles. The Bills make the playoffs 47% of time if they win, 26% if they lose. The Eagles are basically in the playoffs. They make the Super Bowl 23% of the time when they win and 18% when they lose. And of course, this is the one where DVOA really disagrees with every other power ranking on the web. Although I will say most advanced metrics have the Bills ahead of the Eagles. Yes. Right now, we have the Bills 5th and the Eagles 10th. Okay. And this feels like the kind of game that the Bills will lose by 3 points.
See, you say that, and yet I'm kind of on the other way on this in terms of I think whatever – the impact of changing coordinators. And like everybody's trying to say, well, this is what Joe Brady did different. Joe Brady went out there and wasn't the other guy. And like everybody played with their hair on fire.
Yeah, I don't think Joe Brady did much different at all. And they just didn't fumble and they caught more passes. And it was the freaking Jets.
Jets had like 27 possessions when the ball kept getting back to them.
Yeah.
But you do get a bump usually when everybody's like, oh, look busy. There's a new boss, etc. Eagles. Well, we saw what we saw last night. Was that you probably don't have it.
It was a reverse post win. Yes.
Yeah.
DVOA wise, the Eagles were better.
Okay.
But in the post game win expectancy formula, the Chiefs come out ahead because they had 20 more plays than the Eagles did.
Right.
And because they were better passing the ball while the Eagles were better running the ball. And usually the better passing team tends to win the game.
Interesting.
So post-game win expectancy was something like 68% Chiefs. Mm-hmm. But DVOA-wise, the Chiefs went down and the Eagles went up.
Interesting. I still see the Eagles team coming off a emotional road win.
Right.
In the rain. So, you come back with the sniffles or whatever. And coming in against an opponent that is on let's say a mini hot streak.
And yeah, I mean, the Eagles, I mean, again, similar to the Chiefs game, this is not the worst loss in the world for the Eagles.
Right.
Because it's an out-of-conference game. In fact, this one might be even less, because at least if you had lost to the Chiefs, it would be like, oh my God, they can't get over the hump. It's the same team they lost to in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Where if they lose to the Bills, I think we all go, well, the Bills are the most inconsistent team in football, so I guess the good Bills showed up this week. So,
Right.
all right. Well, the Eagles didn't lose any tiebreakers on this. Forward march.
Right. And also, you came off a week where the Cowboys rolled and the Niners rolled, and the Eagles take a loss and they fall back in the standings. We may be in a similar situation coming up, but there's still, you could move further into the season. You keep your 2-game lead over both of those teams. Eagles do have to look past and see Cowboys and 49ers are coming again very soon.
Some splits here. Do not blitz Hurts because the Bills defense has a 31% DVOA allowed with a blitz, but only 6% allowed without a blitz.
Okay.
And both of those numbers have been worse since the Milano injury because the whole defense has been much worse since the Milano injury. The Bills are better when their opponents have more defensive backs on the field.
Okay.
The Eagles are better when they have fewer defensive backs on the field.
Yeah, they don't.
So the Bills want to spread the Eagles out. The Eagles are still 32nd against tight ends, but given the way Byard kind of shut down Travis Kelce, Dalton Kincaid is a very different kind of tight end.
Right.
Does Byard shut down Dalton Kincaid in the same way or slow him down in the same way? Or is Kincaid more like, we're going to cover him with a cornerback, and then what happens? Because then you're covering him with the slot corner, and the slot corner has been a problem for the Eagles all year.
Right. And that's the thing. I think of Kincaid almost as a slot corner, the way they use him, the way they line up. And then you'd say, do you move Bradbury inside against him? Again, Roby would be the other choice there. I would look at Byard as somebody I want in the middle of the field against Josh Allen scrambles and things like that.
Both offenses have been better this year after halftime.
Yes.
The Bills go from 9th to 1st, and the Eagles from 17th to 3rd.
I see over-under split coming. We had that one by the skin of our teeth on the Monday night.
We made it with the Kansas City over, yeah.
I could see going first half under 23.5 in this game because you're right. Even last week for the Bills, it was field goal start early on. They couldn't really get untracked. And the Eagles' first drive is good, but then the subsequent drives, it's not as strong. I was just going to say, one thing was clear on Monday night. Eagles don't really have a third receiving option right now.
Julio Jones is.
Oh gosh,
the guy, and Olamide Zacchaeus in the backfield. That was interesting.
Right? But you're using Swift on angle routes and things like that to be the number 3, and that creates an opportunity where the Bills. And I don't think they'll blitz, but they can sit back
with no Milano. Who's covering Swift on angle routes out of the backfield?
Well, whoever it is, you definitely want them doing that, and you don't want to spill Hurts. You don't want Hurts spilling and running against the middle of that defense. So you're better off mush rushing him and saying, well, we have 2 guys to cover in Swift, and then you'll worry about Jack Stoll when the time comes.
I'm not worried about Jack Stoll. Sorry, Jack.
You're not?
The line is Eagles -3. And I feel like the Eagles are going to win by 3.
Okay.
But I think if I had to pick this game, I would pick Bills +3 because the kind of obnoxious Bills loss could also be by 2.
Right.
I'm being very defeatist about the Bills at this point.
Yes, right.
They're going to go in there and they're going to play a good game and then they're going to lose by 1 point and it's the Bills, man. That's just the way their season's gone.
I think the matchup is not great for the Eagles. I think the circumstances coming off Monday night aren't great for the Eagles. If I'm doing the Bills, I take the money line, which is +145. And I was actually playing around, and it's like this is another one of those ones where it's like, well, if the Bills win this, they're probably going to steamroll. They're probably going to be like, here's our statement again. If you were to tease it, if you're a Bills fan and you're feeling it, or a big DVOA supporter more than Aaron at this point, I think the Bills are going to take this. If you tease it to Bills -3, or I tease it to -2.5, so they could win by a field goal, it goes all the way up to +175. So if you like the Bills, don't just take the Bills and take that +3. Do something like the money line and go for the outright win.
That makes some sense. Let's talk about the night game, which is the 8-3 Ravens. Speaking of teams DVOA loves,
He does.
The 8-3 Ravens at the 4-6 Chargers. The simulation has the Ravens make the Super Bowl 36% of the time if they win and 28% if they lose.
Wow.
The Chargers make the playoffs 26% of the time if they win this game. 7% if they lose.
So somehow Brandon Staley threw Matt Canada under the bus. I don't know how that's possible, but it was like a ricochet effect, and that's how he saved his job. He got another team's coordinator fired.
Someone was talking on Twitter, I think it was Timo Risky from PFF, about how the Chargers are the kind of team that look like they're loaded with talent if you don't understand age curves.
Yes.
They are filled with guys in their early 30s who are playing too much, like they depend too much on Keenan Allen, and he's 31.
Eckler, too.
And rookies who, other than the left tackle Slater, never lived up to their draft position. Starring Quentin Johnson, who is like has the massive rookie yips.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore they look like on paper they look like they should be much better than they are. And also Matt Harmon's reception perception. Oh my God, is Quentin Johnston bad for a rookie? Like terrible for a rookie. And so with like Palmer out, like they're dependent, and Mike Williams out, they're depending on this guy, and he can't do anything.
They've also got nothing in terms of a number 2 or 3 running back, nothing in terms of a number 2 or 3 tight end that you can put out there and say, well, this is a guy who can take some of the heat off. So it's Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, and that's what you're relying on. And then you look at the defense, and you kind of have the same phenomenon. We have some big names who are older. Khalil Mack.
Bosa no Bosa this week. Bosa's going on IR.
Okay. And you've got some big first-round picks who you know who they are. They might have had – I don't even know what Derwin James is even doing at this point. He's like a guy.
Chargers defense worst in the league on passes up the middle.
And on short passes, or 30th in short passes, I think.
30th in short passes, something like that. Weak against wide receiver ones, although I don't know who qualifies as Baltimore's wide receiver one. Right now I have Zay Flowers as wide receiver one.
I would think
like who would they have their top corner cover? It probably isn't Odell anymore. It's probably Zay Flowers.
I think it's Beckham. No, I disagree.
You still think Beckham is the guy that the other team would start, even though he doesn't play all the snaps, I guess.
Right, but like Flowers is the guy you would want your slot specialist covering because of the way he plays, and say that that's where our nickel guy should go against. Whereas the pure speed of Odell would still be like, okay, who's their number 1 cornerback right now
for the Chargers?
Yeah.
Michael Davis is not who I think would be number 1. Asante Samuel is the slot guy, right?
Asante should be. I'm just going to look it up very briefly right now. I'm going to take a minute to do this. But like I lost track of this defense because it is horrendous. And their top corners are Michael Davis, JC's gone, Asante, and there doesn't seem to be a third corner. There's just a bunch of guys.
There is one. I mean, the differences between these teams. Baltimore is number 2 in defense, and Chargers are 29.
It fell by the name of Yasir Taylor.
2 things that do favor the Chargers in this game. 1, Herbert is killing the blitz this year.
Okay.
And the Ravens like to blitz. And Herbert's averaging 7.9 yards per play with 47% DVOA against blitzes.
Right.
2, the best down and play combo for the Chargers defense is third down passing, which is a relative weakness for the Ravens offense in that they are only average at it.
Okay.
So maybe they can get the Ravens off the field. If they could stop them on first and second down, good luck with that. But if they could stop them on first and second down, force them into passes on third down, get them off the field, and then if the Ravens get cocky and overblitz Herbert, the offense can make things happen. The line in this game is the Ravens minus 3.5, and I this is my favorite pick of the week is the Ravens minus 3.5.
Yeah, whenever it's more than 2.5 for the Ravens, I want to tease it a little bit. But yeah, I'm comfortable with the Ravens. I've seen enough of the Chargers the last couple of years. I've talked enough about the Chargers over the last couple of years. This is a game where the Ravens should be able to take control the clock, control everything, get the win.
Yeah. All right, that does it for our Week 12 preview. Thank you, everybody who watching us live. Less than usual because it's Wednesday rather than Thursday, so we really appreciate you showing up.
Yep.
Thank you to everybody who's listening afterwards in your podcast feeds. Don't forget to rate and review the show and tell all your friends about the show. Bring us more viewers, more discussion, more people spreading the word, spreading the gospel of DVOA. Mike will be off on Monday. Brian Knowles will be here to review Week 12 with me. I'll be here at 11 a.m. Eastern on Monday. Until then, everybody, enjoy your Thanksgiving and the Thanksgiving weekend of football. We are out of here. So long.